Great job. You just went through the handling and condition portion of the show. Tell me how that went. What were the judges looking for, and how did you feel about your run with Nostalgia?
Yeah, so it went really good. I was very happy with her, very much impressed and just overjoyed with our results. Just like how she handled it all. A little background on how the judging works is they're looking for connection in this class, right? So they're gonna wanna see the horsemanship aspect of it. They're gonna wanna see if she's connected with me, if she's doing as I ask her to, if she's calm, and just even though things might bother her, she's still connecting and wanting to work through like the things that I ask her to.
Right.
So it's judged on the horsemanship, right? Another area it's judged on is the conditioning aspect. So like they're gonna judge her body, they're gonna say, oh, is she an adequate weight?
Okay.
Is she looking healthy? Is she looking happy? Are her hooves like doing well? Is she an upkept horse? And so that's why they call it handling conditioning, because they're judging both of those things.
Got it.
How I feel like she did, I think she did really good. I am very happy with her. She stepped up for me. I had some reserves going in, like walking down the alleyway before we went in. She was jumping out of her skin, you know, horses. But she came through for me. She aced it, in my opinion, and really just stepped up to par there. So I'm very proud of her.
Okay, so they had you bring your horse into the round pen, and tell us about like what that looked like, because I know everything started there.
Yeah. So yeah, it starts at the round pen when I walk in through the gate. Went in right to the center, got her centered in the round pen, took her halter off, walked out, and they give us about 10-15 seconds to let the horses move around if they want to lay down or run, or if they want to follow us. They have liberty and time to do anything they need to do. Then we walk back in, and she, when I took her halter off, she likes to follow me. So she followed me out, and then she followed me to the gate, and I walked out. She waited for the most part. She looked around, but she stuck there at the gate, and I was able to halter her, no problem, and go ahead and walk back onto the rest of our course, which is really cool.
Awesome. Okay. And then the next step was they had you guys go up to like a barrel, right? And you had to like, I think you trotted. Tell us about what was going on there.
So directly from our catch pen or the round pen, we walk straight beside a barrel, turn and line up with our next obstacle. So we stop at the barrel, we have a brush on our barrel, and we want to cover the points of our horse, like brush all the way down. I was able to throw the rope over her neck. I have a lot of trust in this horse. I knew she would, in a sense, do ground tying. I just don't drop the rope. I have a white one. I don't want it to get dirty. So I threw it over her neck. She stood there. She didn't budge. I was really proud of her. There were a lot of crazy kids coming into the arena at the same time.
That was nuts, because I saw when you came in, there was like a school tour group, and there was probably like 200 kids
right in front.
going up the bleachers and everything, making a lot of noise, getting their lunch bags passed out to them. How did she handle that? She looked at...
She did really good. She was watching everything, and she acknowledged it was there, but she didn't react.
Were you nervous when you saw that?
I was nervous going in, like just wanting her to stand still, because you know they could be standing still great at home and then fall apart in the show. I know I've put her in as many circumstances as I can to get her prepared for that. Right. And I know she's a really wonderful horse, but you never know for sure. And she handled it really good. She didn't walk off or anything. So that was really nice. So from that barrel, we grab the brush, we brush the different points in their body. I walk around behind her, come up, brush her head and her ears to show she's not head shy or ear shy, and then place the brush back on. And that whole time I was focusing on not being rushed. So a lot of times people are scared their horse is gonna run off, so they're like, brush, and then they go drop it on the barrel and then grab their horse again. I was like, okay, if she leaves me, she leaves me. But I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and just walk through like everything's chill.
Right.
And honestly, I think she fed off of that energy, and we fed off of each other's quiet energy, and that was really good.
Awesome. So it looked like a lot of the horses struggled with getting onto the trailer, and it looked really scary. A lot of horses stopped, they paused. Some horses didn't go in, some horses went in and freaked out. How did the trailering go?
It was really good. I could tell after we did the trot line and we backed up and picked up feet, I could tell going to the trailer that when I started to line her up, I could feel her start to fall behind me a little. At the shoulder, she started to rock back a little, and I just told her, I said, hey, I want to put you in a position I knew you weren't capable of, and she stepped up, walked right in, stood in there calmly, didn't move around, and then backed up when I asked her to after a few seconds, and it exceeded my expectations, so I was very happy with it.
Awesome. Okay, so you're going to be doing the obstacles and your trail class, and we're starting out with, I think you said it's like trotting a serpentine.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that, and like, what does that teach your horse?
The trotting the serpentine is going to be interesting because it's directly from the starting line into the trot, so you won't have time to walk your horse into the arena or anything. It's like go into your trot, serpentine around a few cones. Essentially, this teaches your horse to stay in connection with you in a quicker movement than a walk. It's a little bit easier for your horse to stay with you at a walk, but once you trot, it adds another element of difficulty, especially when it's twisting around something like a scary orange cone.
Sure.
So yeah, it just helps being able to have your horse more at your shoulder, staying with you, being able to go right from a standstill into the arena at a trot around your cones.
So tell me about the bridge. I know there's a bridge obstacle that you took her over. What does that look like? What does that teach your horse? Why teach your horse to go over a bridge obstacle?
Well, as we know, as horse owners, bridges are something we can encounter in day-to-day life. So whether your horse is loaded in a trailer, whether they're walking on concrete, whether they're changing from dirt to grass, there's a different texture and a different level of ground, and we all know anything can set horses off. Right. A bridge is often a great element of really being able to test your horsemanship and your horse's courage, because how does a horse know if that bridge is not going to fall through, or if it's not going to break or creak, or something isn't going to happen? So it's an obstacle that is really an obstacle for horses. They don't know if they're going to fall into it or fall off or fall over. They're just having to trust their handlers that we aren't going to put them through or on or over anything that's going to harm them. So I think a bridge is a factor where you get to completely see if a horse is one-on-one with a handler, because it's definitely something that tests them. It's loud. It's a different color. It's sometimes, I think this one's wood, so it can be pretty different. You're stepping up noisy on something. Yeah. Sure. For sure. Made out of wood, so it does that. But yeah, that's just something like working bridges helps you teach a horse how to load, because it changes, the ground and everything. So I think it's a really good way to get horses to just have great manners and confidence in their handlers, for sure.
So you also had to pick up a rein slicker, which is wavy and makes noise, and do something with that. Tell me, like, what was that about, and how does that prepare your horse? Yeah,
so a rein slicker is like a mini tarp. And we know tarps eat horses, right? So this one's, if I remember, it's a bright yellow one, and it's going to be sitting on a barrel, and the barrels are set up where you can do a figure 8 around them. So we're going to be walking a figure 8 around our barrels with the slicker placed on our horse. And essentially we're looking for our horses to not throw up their head, not run off to you carrying something over onto them, and to be able to not only put it on, but able to walk a few feet around something and take it back off and set it on a barrel. That way you can really test if your horse is going to stick with you or leave you. So it's a really good way to desensitize and just see if your horse is, once again, trusting you or afraid of a slicker.
Okay, awesome, very cool. You're telling me now you have to walk your horse over a tarp, and tell us a little bit about that. Also, tell me a little bit about the preparation to get her ready for something like that.
So it's nice with the rein slicker because you get to kind of prep them for the tarp a little bit. They're kind of used to the noise and the bright color. So then after a rein slicker, we walk over, go directly over a tarp. Once again, the tarp is a lot like a bridge. So it's a different color. We know horses see different colors than us, and normally they're pretty bright colored. They're also very, very loud. I would say they're scarier than bridges. So even though a horse isn't stepping up onto something or off of something, they're still going across something that makes noise and crumples beneath their feet. It's just a really good way of desensitizing, and once again, knowing that your horse isn't going to run off and drag you, especially these Mustangs. Will they stick with us going over something that is very scary and very counter nature for them? Right, because they're flight animals, so they always want to leave something that bothers them. So we're asking them, no, I know it's scary, but you got to follow me over it and go with me across and conquer that fear. I do a lot of tarp work at home, a lot of bag work, you know, ribbons, whips, anything to just be able to get my horses used to any sounds and colors.
Gotcha.
Just walking them over a bunch of stuff so that nothing's a surprise, right? A tarp, she might get scared, but she's seen it a million times. It's not like I haven't prepped her. I have walked her over it. I've thrown it on her. I've, you know, dragged it off of her. All that stuff so that at least it's not something new to her.
Gotcha. Awesome. So there's an element where they're going to have you side pass your horse over a pole. Explain what the side pass is and tell us a little bit about like how you worked on that. And again, like what does that teach a horse? Like why would you want your horse to go sideways over something?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways of teaching the side pass. You can do a side pass away, which is where we will shift our horse away from us sideways. And then there's a side pass too, which is where we will shift their body towards us, into us. I have taught Nostalgia both. The side pass isn't her forte, but she can do it pretty decently. So yeah, it's a whole nother element when you add a pull in as well. A pull can cause a lot of anxiety with horses. They normally can, you know, like her, for instance, she can side pass great just anywhere on any given day, but then you put a pull there and she's like, pull, I don't want to do it. So it's just a lot of like work away from the pull, rest on the pull, side pass away, side pass two. The side pass is a really handy ground maneuver, or you could call it a trick too. And you can use it out on a trail. If you get off your horse and you're having a hard time getting back on, you climb the fence, you side pass your horse to you. If your horse is stuck somewhere or something and they're in a weird position, you can side pass away. And you know, it's in most like ranch riding classes, there's normally always an element of a side pass, either under saddle or on the ground, and it really just shows the trainability of your horse and like how responsive they are to your cues and your body language, and if they just know those maneuvers that are super handy to have.
So there's a backup chute where you have to back your horse up or maybe turn them or something. Why would you teach a horse to back up in a chute? What's the purpose there? Tell us about that.
Okay. I would say the backup is probably one of the most important maneuvers you can teach a horse. It teaches personal space. It's a great safety thing, either under saddle or once you get on the ground. Either way, if you're out on a trail and you get stuck and you need to back out of something, you need to have a horse that can back up and get out of something safely and not be stuck. So when we had gotten to the backup, I think it was just really overwhelming. There was so many poles, and there were like plastic flowers in the middle, and she wasn't scared of anything, but she didn't quite like understand what I was asking her to do. So we didn't have a very clean backup chute, unfortunately.
Awesome. So for example, like when you found that she was struggling, like kind of how did you handle that? Were you like, it is what it is, or kind of what did you try to save it? Like tell us a little bit about what was going on.
I kept working at it. I was honestly laughing because I expected better, but I was like, you know, it is what it is. We're here. That's the important part. And we're going to do dumb stuff. And even our horses are silly and we don't set them up properly. And so I was kind of laughing at, you know, the whole thing. But I know to like be able to just be, you know, try to adjust to the particular horse that I'm showing with. So yeah. All
right, so you also have to trot over some poles. Why would you teach a horse to trot over poles? And tell us a little bit about preparing her for that.
Yeah, so yeah, there's going to be 3 trot poles, and it's going to be directly out of the backup chute, which another tricky element in this performance. You're going from just backing your horse up to expecting them to jump into the trot and go over some poles, not just straight into the trot. It's like poles there. And this is super important because it teaches our horses to pick up their feet some more over poles. We don't want them knocking poles. Once again, that's a deduction of points. So the more they can pick up and lift over those poles, the better. It takes a lot of training to get to that point, unless you have a horse that's like really sensitive about poles. But yeah, I mean, it's a good element to introduce something else for them to step over. Sometimes the poles are colorful and they can be spooky. Sometimes they're just brown and the horse doesn't really care, or it might blend in with the ground and they can't see it, so they hit it. And it's also a great introduction to jumping. So if you're training your horse to jump, you want to make sure they're good at crossing poles without hitting them or moving them over. So yeah, we're going to trot directly from the backup chute over the poles, and we're looking for a clean trot over all 3 of them and hopefully no knocking. But that's always the goal in ranch classes or in hand stuff, and just clean pole work.
What advice would you give to somebody at home who wants to teach their horse how to trot over poles? Like, is there certain steps or an approach that you would take to teach that horse?
I normally make sure first my horse is good at trotting in hand, and also trotting on the lunge line. So I want to be able to send my horse out around me at a trot and have that nice and fluid, and also do it in hand. And then I'll introduce the poles one at a time. So we'll start out small. Our goal is, let's make 1 clean pole. If we make that clean, then maybe the next day we introduce 2, and then we ask them to do that. Because the more poles, the more difficult it is for your horse to complete that task. Because they're like, oh, I don't want to step on that one, but there's one in front of me, and then they have to keep thinking forward, don't walk, but also don't hit. So it's pretty tricky like that, but I like to start very small, make sure my horse is moving forward, and then can also move forward over something, and then things, multiple things, and just increase that.
Got it. So you kind of break it down into small steps and then put it all together. Very cool. Awesome. So there, you see, you have to put your horse in a box, and then you pivot in the box. Tell us about that. Why would you teach a horse to do that?
Yeah, so the pivot itself, your horse can learn pretty well, but it's like the side pass. When you add some poles into there, it's a little bit trickier. So the poles are going to make up a square. We're going to trot up either to the box or into the box, and then make sure our horse is set and standing square. They're not moving around, not doing anything silly. And then I normally like to do a shoulder pivot. I think it looks cleaner. I think it's harder to teach. So I like to teach I do the hindquarter pivot and the shoulder pivot. I teach both. But I think for showing, just like under saddle work, a shoulder pivot is more clean, and just, the level of difficulty is a little bit higher, in my opinion, to be able to have a horse cross its front legs rather than its back legs. So in the box, I would, since we're doing one pivot, one direction, a full circle, I would pick the strongest side of my horse, and I would ask them to do it on their strongest point. Sometimes you're asked to do both directions. This one's just one. And I'll have her rock back on her hindquarters, cross over her front legs, and be able to go completely around in that box without hitting a pole, without walking over. So once again, whenever you hit a pole or you walk out of the box, or your horse does, that's a deduction of points, and it doesn't look clean to the judges. So you normally do what your horse is best at, especially in this challenge. If you have a horse that does not like to do a shoulder pivot, go for the hindquarter pivot. Make sure that you're using the strongest point of that horse and you're emphasizing it so the judges only see what looks good.
That makes sense. I feel like the horse, if they're confident with that, they're going to do better, right? Does any of this stuff have practical application? Is it just for showmanship, or does it actually have a use in training and teaching your horse when you do trail work and obstacle work?
It has major use. As you can see, like, that's what the Mustang thing is about. That's what the Wild and Mild is. It's making sure your horse can be a good citizen. Some animal that can go out and do maneuvers well, efficiently, calmly, and trusting in us the whole time. Because if they can't do these maneuvers, then why would we expect to ride them? If they can't do these maneuvers, how well are we expected to ranch off of them? How well
so
are we
you're
supposed
saying
to
before
show
you
off
ever
them?
get on a horse, like for you, these are things that are foundational that these horses need to know how to do?
Yeah, so when I start riding horses, I like them to know pretty much as they can on the ground before I ride them. If anything under saddle is normally what you can teach on the ground first. So I like to do that. These horses, we can see, these Mustangs, when they finish up these shows after 3 months, they're normally dreams to ride because they've had all this groundwork. They've had this solid foundation that just gives them confidence with you on the ground. So why wouldn't they be confident when you're on their back. So it really helps them just be able to use their body to maneuver differently and to do that all at your command in a way, because of the training and the hard work that's gone into them. And it definitely applies to everyday life. Like, we back out of a trailer, we lead into a trailer, you know, we side pass up to a gate to open a gate on a trail so we don't have to get off and walk. So yeah, it's every day you'll find these things are very applicable to life in general.
Awesome. There's a lot of people who would just climb on a horse and go. In fact, there's some people who would say, that's silly. 60, 90 days of groundwork and stuff before you climb on a horse. Like, what are your thoughts about that? And what would you say to someone who maybe, you know, has that perspective and says, oh, you know, I could teach all that stuff from under saddle. Why waste precious time doing that on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, every horse is different. Every horse has a different level of trainability. Every horse's brain thinks differently. Some are more reactive, some are less reactive. And each one has their own time frame too. So one horse might be ready to ride in a week of work. One horse might take months, if not years, to ride. But this foundation helps them just go into riding with a level of confidence that you would not see if you didn't put the groundwork in. Why would I expect my horse to carry me if she doesn't trust me and all these things I asked her to do on the ground? She can't see me very well when I'm on top of her, so why would she walk over a bridge when I'm on top of her if I don't teach her to do it on the ground? So it's just setting them up for success, and just being able to say, I've prepped you. Of course, you're still going to do silly stuff and you're going to react sometimes, but you've had the groundwork, you've had the foundation. You can honestly pretty much go and conquer anything at this point, because that trust lies within their handler. They know the handler can work them through a side pass. They know the handler can work them over a tarp, and it's not going to eat them because we're there helping them, saving them. And the same thing under saddle. So I feel like people that skip the groundwork, they miss a lot, and they end up having things come back to bite them down the road. So you might have a ranch horse that's dead broke, but then, you know, something sets it off and it blows up because it hasn't been worked through those things on the ground, and it hasn't had the time to fully develop through all that and to grow in confidence.
I was sitting in the stands when you brought your horse out with other people, and a lot of people were like, whoa, that horse is really quiet and really, really impressive. And the level of horsemanship is apparent with the work that you've done with her and how far you've brought her. What got you there? Because you can see a difference. You know, the other competitors did really, really well as well, but you could see a huge difference with the work that you guys put in. What would you contribute that to? Like, what's different about what you do that makes her so trusting and solid and confident with you?
I have a lot of faith in God. I think a lot of it has to do with your energy. And even though I went in there nervous, and there were points like where the kids came in, I'd start shaking because I was like, I know she can do it, but you know, like, you never know, right? You never know how your horse is going to show up for you. They might just not be on top of their game one day. And I think that there's just a calming effect that can come from God, and it helps me to calm down. It helps that energy to then flow into my horse. Another aspect, we have literally spent the last 3 months preparing for this day, and it's in a sense, it's just a class. We're here to celebrate what we've learned.
Do you care about winning?
I love to win. I'm competitive. But like I said, like this competition over these 2 days is literally just a celebration of what we've learned. So I've spent, since my last Mustang competition, I spent the entire year watching videos, reading stuff, learning from people, getting hands-on experience, just diving in and soaking up any knowledge that I could, because I wanted to be better. I wanted to be a better handler for my horse. I wanted to care enough about them to put the hours in, to know that, you know, even when we had setbacks like lameness and health issues, we were gonna still be able to come back and make up for it because we had put the pre-work in and we had a connection that we had developed over time. So yeah, it's a lot of preparation. It's hours, it's sleepless nights, it's hauling anywhere, everywhere you can, but it also comes from at home. Like, it comes from just the day-to-day little things that You know, they seem little, but they're not so little. And just being able to get into your horse's brain and understand them and know that, you know, if we're not on the same page and we're not connected, I shouldn't expect her to do anything good for me. If we are, you know, who's to stop us? So those are a couple things that I think is just a game changer, is honestly just being able to have that energy that's positive, which I struggle with because I'm always like, oh, we're doing this bad and this bad, and being able to have calm nerves, and just trust, you know, trust the process, trust your horse. You know, we're here to have fun. You know, it's a blast. You can come out smiling, even if your horse embarrasses you. So I went in with that. I was like, you know, she embarrasses me, I'll laugh it off. And that's what you do. Like, if they feel the energy that I'm going to be disappointed in them, then they're not going to want to go and perform again because it's going to make them feel bad. So horses feel that.
I love that. We put a lot on our horses sometimes and we don't realize it.
Yeah.
And if we go in, you know, having those expectations, it's not that you don't have expectations, but I love what you said about, like, this is about celebrating what you guys have learned. And I know that there are a lot of people with horses, and one of the things I admire about you is when you work with a horse, you want to make sure that that horse is safe and has a good experience. You told me before, like, I won't start a horse, and, you know, like for a first ride until I'm certain that that horse is quiet, trusting, and confident, so that we're not going to have a rodeo or a buck fest, that horse and you are going to do well. What would you say to somebody who's watching this, who's like, well, you know, she trains horses and she can ride horses? Because you talked about that celebration, but there's sometimes with people's horses where things don't go as planned and they don't feel celebratory.
Yeah.
They don't feel like they're winning. They feel like they're in this valley and things are tough, and they feel like that vision of where they want to get is so far removed from where they are. What would you say to someone like that?
I would say, you know, take the wins. You're working with an animal that is a flight animal that literally survives on its instincts. So when we take it in and we domesticate it and we train it, we're literally teaching them to go against their nature. That's not what they were created for, per se. And so we're asking them to do all these things that they're not naturally meant to do. And so take the little wins. Like, every day you go work with your horse, pinpoint one thing. Say, I want my horse to look at me when I go catch it. Like, I don't want it to just turn away and run off. I want it to actually acknowledge that I'm coming to get it. Take that as a win if they look at you. There's something that goes around that says, look for just that 1% every day, you know, and at 100 days you have 100%. It really is, you know, it's always like, you know, a step forward or 2 steps forward, a step back, 2 steps forward, a step back. Sometimes it's 3 steps back and you're like, feel behind. But, you know, that's the unpredictability of horses, and we just have to humble ourselves to know that if we can get 1% from our horse that day, we need to end it on that, celebrate, thank our horses, tell them what a great job, and they crave that. They crave the positivity, just like people. Like, if you go work with someone that's always negative, you're like, I don't want to be with them. Right. But then they compliment you and you're like, man, I want to be around this person. Sure. So it's the same thing with horses.
Awesome. I know there's an auction at the end. Mm-hmm. Are you selling Nostalgia? You're not going to sell her?
She's here for keeps.
Keeping her? Is this long term? Do you think you're going to keep her? What are your plans with her?
Well, you know, anything can happen. Life's unpredictable. Things could change tomorrow. God might have other plans, but I want to hold on to her permanently. My plan is for her to be my Tricks and Liberty horse for demonstrations and clinics and stuff. I'd love to travel with her. And she's just so well-rounded. She can do about anything. She's the type you'll be able to eventually give kids lessons on during the week and then go show and win ribbons on the weekend. So that's my goal. You know, she's going to be an all-arounder, help me start some horses, do Western English. That's the plan, but she's special, so she's staying.
This is going to be Kaylianna Humor and Nostalgia. Your overall winner, Kaylianna Huber. I won the trailer. No, I didn't, but Kaylianna Huber did.
All right, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
You just got, what do they call it? High point?
Yeah.
What was it? Competition?
I don't know, overall high point.
You won it all, right? You won it all. You had an outstanding freestyle performance. You did well in all of the classes leading up to that. Tell us a little bit about like the experience and a little bit about each class, culminating in winning. And I understand you won like saddle and maybe a buckle and a trailer. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm just so grateful. I'm really overwhelmed right now. Always proud of my horse, you know, and grateful to God. Classes, honestly, you know, with horses, there's ups and downs. So you learn a lot from them, and how do you get better without learning from them? Handling conditioning, blew out of the park with that one, placing first, and that was really exciting. Trail didn't quite go as according to plan. We started out pretty smooth, but we struggled with our backup, and I think that ended up costing us, you know, a 0.5 off of first place. So it was a bit disappointing, but you live and you learn.
Okay. And then tell us a little bit, if you can walk through your freestyle, tell us a little bit about it, the inspiration, all that.
The inspiration? Well, the freestyle went awesome. It was definitely not what I had originally planned. I think kind of the theme of the challenge this year for me and my heart was just going and enjoying the process, to not get overwhelmed with the stress and the strain, or the expectations that others have put on me. So I wanted to just enjoy my horse. I knew that this year if I had placed, you know, priority on being a champion, I was going to lose a connection with a very special horse. And so I knew that that connection with my mare was more important than winning. And she ended up coming through in the end like I thought she would, and definitely took it, you know, hit it out of the ballpark for me. But the Million Dreams theme is just essentially what the song is, A Million Dreams. You know, you have a lot of dreams with horses and horse training, and coming from humble beginnings and being able to work with great people and dream and move forward with that, and then have vision, you know, from past years and be able to go into that and just reflect on, you know, all the great experiences and have a wonderful horse. I knew she's gonna make a million dreams come true. She already has. And I was like, what's more fitting, you know, have a little dance with a very special unicorn. So
Awesome. Well, great job you guys did.
you.
Outstanding. Congratulations.
appreciate it.
Way to go.